Hello everybody, Reverend Dr. Red here. Now the purpose of this video is just to explain a couple of things about myself and why I do things a certain way. Now first of all, as you can see, I'm wearing a sleeveless t-shirt as opposed to my usual button-down shirts that I would wear in my videos. The purpose behind that is, well, yes, I am a public speaker, yes, I am a minister, and yes, I am hoping to find some more work in the public speaking field through my videos. And I'm also trying to use my videos to get the truth out to more people in more areas, as well as get the word out about Spiritual Messiah Ministries and the Spiritual Truth Coalition. However, I believe that there is a certain way to do things, and the mainstream way just isn't it. I started out wearing my button-down shirts to do my videos to avoid any nonsensical, completely stereotypical comments that I'm probably going to get to this video. Now, if you hire me to perform your wedding, to perform a baptism or any kind of ceremony for you, I'm going to dress the part, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, everybody needs to realize that there isn't just one way of doing anything. There's multiple different ways. There's multiple different ways that works for different people. One thing that's important is that there's only one truth, and everybody realize that there's only one truth. As far as preaching that truth, there's multiple different ways because there's multiple different ways people understand different things. Like, for example, some people learn better by writing it down, where everybody says down. Others learn it better by hearing it. Other people might learn it better by just simply listening, and just like that, they know it. Other people might need to do a combination of the three. Well, the same thing applies to the teachers. Every teacher has a different teaching technique. A good example of this is back when I was in high school. I had my history teacher who was very strict and very on the path of things. And that was mainly because he was a commander of the United States Navy, and I was lucky enough to have him as a teacher. But then another one of my classes, another history teacher, a couple of years later in school, taught in a completely different way. He literally made you live the history. He didn't just write down, you had to jot it down, you got your lectures, you had your essays and your tests and everything. He made you live it. What I mean by that is, depending on what we were learning at that particular time, he'd literally walk into class every day late. He'd make sure all of his students were in the classroom first. He did this because he was dressed up the part. If you were learning about the founding of America, he would walk in the room one day versus George Washington. He'd walk in the next day as Benjamin Franklin. You know, he had the class split up, and half of us dressed up as Indians, the other half of us dressed up as the Pilgrims, and we acted out different things. You know, he was a really cool guy. And yes, this was while we were in high school, so at the high school mindset, you can kind of feel out how ridiculous a lot of us felt it was at the time. But looking back on it, he was a pretty cool teacher, and I'm going to say that I probably learned more from him than from any other teacher. This is all hands-on. You're actually taking part in it. Now, relating that to what I'm trying to get at in this video about myself, what I mean by new minister for a new world. Well, first of all, I mean just that. I am a new minister for a new world. First of all, we got to realize that these times is completely different than any other time in history. Even just going back 20, 30 years, today is different than just 20 years ago, and 10 years ago even. Now, where everybody was expecting, say back in the 1950s, 1960s, all the preachers were clean cut, they had the suits on and the nice dress shoes and everything, and they had a certain way of doing it. If you were Catholic, you knew what to expect, no matter what church you walked into. If you were Protestant, you knew what to expect, depending on your denomination. No matter what church you went into, it was pretty much all the same thing. And pretty much everybody took part in some kind of faith, whether it was one of the Christian faiths or a faith of another kind. Now what we're seeing is a lot of people have in their heads a certain feel and a certain way that a minister is supposed to look, a minister is supposed to act, and a minister is supposed to speak. And that's what they expect when they walk into the churches. And it's because of this expectation that's been instilled into a lot of people's minds of what the church experience is supposed to be like, what the minister is supposed to be like, is why a lot of younger people wound up leaving the church. I grew up a Catholic, and I only lasted until I got my confirmation, and then I was out of there. I didn't take part in the Catholic Church beyond that point. And I was even younger than that before I decided, that this Catholic stuff just wasn't it. And I went through, different stages like every teenager does. I messed around with a lot of different beliefs and a lot of different stuff. Then there's the point where I started studying a lot, because I wanted to know the truth. I didn't know exactly at that time what I was looking for, other than I wanted the truth. And it started out in conspiracy theories having to do with politics and that kind of stuff. And one thing led to the other, and led to the other, and I kept on following. Every time a path took me down to a new area. First I finished going down my path, reviewing whatever topic I was studying, and then I'd cover the area that I was studying. And when that area took me down a path into another area, I would finish out that path, and then I studied that area it took me into. And not before long, well, about 11 years of studies, I wound up, to myself being extremely shocked, I wound up preaching about Jesus Christ, preaching the Bible, and that sort of thing. And like I said, that was a shock to me, because if you knew who I was back then, you never would have guessed it. And when my family found out that I became an ordained minister, and months later completed my divinity course and got my doctorate in divinity, they were all a little shocked, to say the least. But I don't think any of them were as shocked as I was. And that is more or less how Spiritual Messiah Ministries came to be. Because I feel that, knowing that, because I looked into incorporating the ministry just wasn't it for me, because if you really read into it, it actually tells you that you can't say certain things out of the Bible. Now, me as a minister of Christ, it's my job to preach the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, which means I need to be able to preach freely the entire Bible, front to back, and everything in between. So incorporating just wasn't it. And as far as getting a job as a minister with other churches or other ministries, I want to know that I'm going to be preaching in an establishment that has 100% authority to freely preach everything that is in that Bible. No verse left out. And no altered meanings of the verses. So rather than go through all the riffraff of trying to find just the right church to preach in, with the help of a few other people, I founded Spiritual Messiah Ministries, and later on, Spiritual Truth Coalition. Now, the reason why I'm in this video right now dressed in this sleeveless t-shirt is because this is more or less how I preach. Every now and then, I'll be in a button-down shirt. Like I said, when I have a speaking engagement, or if I'm performing a ceremony, or if I'm going someplace that calls for it, I will be in a button shirt and the nice pants and everything. But the majority of the time, this is what I wear. This is who I am. Okay, just for starters. And on top of that, I live in the state of Florida. Not that I'm trying to use that as an excuse, but it is really hot down here. And try wearing a long sleeve black button down shirt in not just in the winter, which is moderate temperatures, but in the middle of summer, man. When I first came down here, I didn't believe the temperatures were as high as they really are, and it's just a whole different kind of heat, you know what I mean? And considering Jesus Christ did say to come as you are, that's what I am doing. I came to Jesus Christ as I was, and I'm preaching the truth of Jesus Christ and the Bible as I am. And to the shock of most of you, this is me looking like this, with the long hair, the goatee, and the sleeveless t-shirt, is actually what got me a couple of congregants here at Spiritual Messiah Ministries. They didn't say it right off the bat, but I think it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe it was 3 weeks ago. And they actually came to me and told me that not only did they learn a lot from me here at Spiritual Messiah Ministries, but that one of the reasons why they chose to come to me, to Spiritual Messiah Ministries, and had me as their pastor, is because I quote-unquote look like them. Now, you gotta realize I'm in a backwards area, and I'm with a bunch of people that not only, they all have, their own individual looks, but this particular couple are bikers. And they have a completely different mentality than a lot of people, especially if you're coming out of the city. These people have a completely different mentality than a lot of people. And he told me, since he moved in, he's been here less than I have. And I think he's been in my neighborhood about almost a year. And when I moved in the area, I introduced myself to them and everything. I didn't tell them I was a minister right away. Let them move in, get settled in and everything. And we formed a friendship along the way, them coming to the ministry and whatnot. And he told me that he actually has family. 2 of his brothers are ministers. And he said that that's the idea. He has ministers in his head, and he feels that that's how you're going to preach, and that's what you're going to look like, and that's how you expect people to come into your church looking like. He can't do it. So when he finally realized I was a minister, he wanted to see what I was all about. And when he realized that this is how I preach, and this is what I look like, and I have a completely different method of preaching than the average minister, he decided to make Spiritual Messiah Ministries his home. A little bit later on, his wife followed him. And a little bit later than that, I finally got the rest of his family coming to Spiritual Messiah Ministries. And I have a few other people that fellowship here as well, because I look like them. More or less meaning that I have a similar mentality than they do, and I dress as they do. And in my personal opinion, as do they feel, mainstream is wrong. Mainstream society should not be telling you what you are to look like to go to church, what you look like to go to church, especially when Jesus himself said to come as you are. So, just like there's different methods of people have to learn different things, I feel the same way about ministers. Each minister has their own way of not only teaching the Word of God to his congregation, they have a different way of appearance for themselves to draw in these different people. And obviously, when somebody walks into their church, even if they're the typical suit and tie type of minister, they might still might get people that leave, even if they're looking for that kind of minister, because the way they're teaching the message might not be the way that they're looking for. It might not grab them the way that they're looking for. And considering my background, I feel that I want to be able to help those that are in a similar situation than as I was when I was younger, and especially the kids that are growing up in a similar situation that I grew up in. And I personally feel the best way of doing that, considering I know how a lot of that works and where it takes your mind on things, especially considering one of the reasons why I left the Catholic Church, considering my entire family was Catholic and what was going on in my family situation. The best way to bring these people in and entice them to come in is not only to tell them you understand and tell them a little bit about your personal experiences from your childhood or your personal experiences with different things as you got older, but it also helps to show them that you're still there, so to speak. Meaning, if I was dressed in a suit and tie, and I was clean shaven, and I had the typical, what society calls a decent male haircut, and I woke up to somebody who's had a similar situation that I had growing up, or if they ran similar situations that I had a couple years ago, and I'm telling them that, I understand where they're coming from, and I go into a little bit about what happened to me, they're more than likely going to look at me like I'm completely insane and move on, like I'm wasting their time. Now you woke up to somebody that had in that kind of situation, or came from a similar type of situation as that, and you kind of blend in with them, and you just start talking. When they finally realize, and it actually sinks in that you're a minister, and you can help, and you can really help them, and you can show them, how to come back to Jesus Christ, and how easy it really is, how wonderful life can really be with Jesus leading the way. If they kind of just look at you like, what? And I feel it's an effective way of doing it. Now, am I going to grab you or, the guy down the road to come into Spiritual Messiah Ministries and fellowship with me? Probably not. Because most people don't like ministers like me. So number one, I don't preach mainstream. Number two, 9 times out of 10, I'm not dressed in a suit and tie. And number three, I'm a little bit more personal than a lot of ministers are. I actually form friendships with my congregation. And I relate my personal experiences with what I teach. This way everybody realizes that not only am I deliberately trying to blend in with them, I do blend in with them. I am one of them. At one point of my life, I was in the very situation that they are in. I can relate to them. And I can tell them how I got out of it. how I came to find Jesus Christ, how I was born again. And then I can relate it to different verses in the Bible. That's how I do things. I view myself as a minister that is really doing what ministers are supposed to be doing. Not focusing on necessarily one avenue, one type of person. I'm trying to grab the entire community. I'm trying to grab everybody. And like I said, you know, if the occasion calls for it, yes, you will see me dressed nice and everything. But more than not, this is how I am. And I expect people to come to the Spiritual Side Ministries as they are. I don't expect donations, number one, because I feel that's a major problem. I mean, granted, yes, everybody's got to survive. And minister's paycheck, especially if you're not incorporated, comes out of the donations only after those donations cover the overhead, like the electric and the rental of the property, and you know, the whole other laundry list of bills that comes along with it, and whatever's left over finally goes to the minister and the staff of the church. Well, the staff first, then finally the senior pastor, to feed the senior pastor's household. And I'm not going to argue that, you know, ministers got to survive, so it would be nice to get donations, but when you walk into churches and you hear the minister point blank tell the congregation when the donation basket is passed around, anything under 20, keep it, you know, that's just like, what? You're supposed to be there leading these people in a walk with Jesus Christ. You're supposed to be the spiritual leader. They're supposed to be able to trust you and come to you with their problems. They're supposed to be there to grow spiritually mature. And you're going to demand a certain amount of money from them? I don't agree with that. So I don't expect anybody to come in here and give me donations. I don't expect anybody to come in here looking a certain way. Just like Jesus said, come as you are. And you know, there's a lot of people I'm working with right now that were in prison and have drug problems and whatnot, and I'm trying to help them out. And the reason why they can come to me and they feel that they can come to me and trust me is because, one, that then they are secure that their identity and what's going on with them in their personal life will stay with me, between me and them. And also because this is the kind of minister I am. I'm showing everybody who I am as a person. I'm showing everybody how I came to Jesus Christ. And I'm showing everybody that doesn't matter where you are in life, what walk of life you're coming from, and what you're into in certain aspects of things anyway. Jesus Christ loves you. Jesus Christ wants you. You don't have to be a millionaire for Jesus to want you. You don't have to be, you know, walking into church in a suit and tie and all clean shaven and everything for Jesus to love you and want you. Either you're a child of God or you're not. It's that simple. So, more or less what I mean that I'm a new minister for a new world is I'm literally taking what Jesus said, Jesus' own teachings, and I'm going out into the world with him. And just as Jesus did, I am doing. Jesus did not dress as the Pharisees dressed. He dressed as everybody else did, the regular, common person. And he told everybody to come as you are. No matter how much you dress yourself up and try to hide yourself, and no matter how good you want to make your appearance so that it looks good to other people, God still knows who you are. You can't hide your true self from God, and that's the only person you should be worried about knowing who you are, is God. Not the minister of your church, not the congregants of your church, but God. That is the only person you should be worrying about what they feel about you, is God. And Jesus deliberately surrounded himself with all the sinners. You know, all the poor people, the drunkards, the criminals. And as he put it, the healthy does not need doctors. You only go to a doctor when you're sick. So, as Jesus did, I am dressing what I feel is appropriate for me, and I'm allowing myself to be seen in public for what I am. I don't have $1 million. I'm in the same boat as the majority of America is in, if not worse. And I have no problem showing that. I don't see a reason to try to portray an image of myself where I'm bigger, better, and more financial off than anybody else. I mean, what am I going to get out of that? Absolutely nothing. I'm giving a false image of myself, and then I can't really call myself a minister of Christ because now I'm lying to the people. Not necessarily about the message that I'm preaching, but about my own self. And if you can't tell the truth about your own self to people, how are they supposed to trust the message that you're relaying to them about anything else? I think that about covers what I'm trying to get at. And, you know, if I find a congregant that manages to be of the upper class, and they want to donate, you know, a couple $1,000s to the ministry, fine. I have no problem with that. But I'm not targeting them. I'm not excluding them either, but I'm not targeting them. What I'm trying to target is anybody that wants to hear the truth of Jesus Christ, that wants to hear the truth of the gospel, and anybody that's lost. It is my job as a minister of Christ to bring the lost in Christ back home to Christ. It is my job to find people that have not yet heard the gospel, and yes, there are people who have not yet heard the gospel. Until I moved into the area, the kid next door never heard the Bible at all. And to bring them to Christ. And it is my job to find other individuals who are going astray and to bring them back. You know, so you're talking any of your drug addicts, any of your drunks, criminals, you know, it doesn't matter. If you've gone astray, you can come back home. Jesus still loves you. Jesus still wants you. Why does he want you? Because you are his brethren. And because you lived out certain experiences, you will be able to relate better to other lost people and help guide them back to Jesus Christ better than anybody who has not experienced what you did. So, say you're a heroin addict, or you were a heroin addict. You would be able to guide that heroin addict to Jesus Christ a lot better than I could. Why? Because I never messed around with heroin. I don't exactly know any heroin addicts. I know coke addicts, I know drunkards, I know people who are potheads, but I never really hung around with heroin addicts. So I can read up on them a lot. I can study up on what heroin does to people and the effects it has on people. And I can read people's stories of how they got themselves off of heroin. But that still will not allow me to bring a heroin addict off of heroin and to Jesus Christ as effectively as you can with the fact that you once were a heroin addict. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And considering I've already been getting judged and ridiculed and called names just based on the message I'm trying to preach, because as I said, my message isn't exactly mainstream. My message is 100% truth, as Jesus Christ himself taught it. I'm going on 13 years in my studies, continuing each and every day. And if I finally come across something that proves me wrong, then I will gladly correct myself. But before I allow myself to say anything about a certain topic, I'm sure to do as much studying on that topic as I possibly can, so I have a complete understanding. So when I relay the message to you, I can be certain that it is the truth. So for all of you that are still watching my videos or reading my articles on the websites that are ridiculing me for my message, I guess, and then you can now ridicule me for how I dress and how I run Spiritual Messiah Ministries. For those of you that were following my message and are now going to ridicule me and decide not to follow me because of the way I dress 9 times out of 10, and like I said, you will see me in the button-down shirts. I do wear them, just not every day. And now because of this, or because of my tattoo, I'm sure I'm going to get ridiculing comments about, which for one, it's none of your business why I have a tattoo. 2, I got it before I even fathomed the idea of becoming a minister. And 3, no, I'm not going to get rid of it because number 1, I don't have the money. Number 2, I'm using it as a dual symbol. Number 1 is a symbol of my life, of where I once was, and it's a constant reminder of my hardships, so I can keep it as a constant on my mind, and by doing so, help others out of those similar situations, as well as it's symbolizing Golgotha, which literally translates out to the Hill of the Skulls, which is the hill that Jesus Christ was crucified on. So I'm using it as a kind of dual meaning. But if now you're going to judge me based on my appearance, then I guess you now can stop viewing my videos and stop reading my articles and stop paying attention to me on the websites and the social networks. Because quite frankly, I don't have time to continue explaining myself to you or anybody else about the way I do things, how I came to Jesus Christ, how I came to the message that I'm preaching, and the fact that almost none of you out there are willing to civilly debate what you feel with me. It's almost always going into derogatory remarks and threats. I don't have time for that stuff. I'm trying to run a full-time ministry here, on top of continuing my studies, and I have more important things to worry about than trying to debate with somebody who's thick-headed. Now, if you want to debate with me civilly, keep the comments clean, and not threaten me, then fine, and then please post your remarks to this video in why you feel my message is the wrong message, or why you feel I shouldn't be wearing sleeveless tees, why you feel I shouldn't have this tattoo. And I will have no problem debating it out with you. But like I said, I'm a new minister for a new world. It's time the world wakes up to what the truth of Jesus Christ is. And it's time the world wakes up to the fact that this idea of what a minister is supposed to look like, act like, and speak like, and this idea of, depending on what denomination you are, the church experience is supposed to be like, was literally embedded into our brains by the government and by society. Society is not God. Government is not God. So I suggest all of you pick up your Bibles and read your Bibles again. We are supposed to be obeying the very teachings of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is the one that's going to be judging you on Judgment Day. Not the government, and not society, not your family, and not your friends, and not your neighbors. Jesus Christ. So I suggest, no matter how crazy your family and friends and society might think you are, or how disrespectful they might think you are, I suggest you wake up to that fact and realize that Jesus wants you as you are. If you're lower class, that's how He wants you. If you're upper class, that's how He wants you. If you had a roughed up life, but you're a better person for it, that's how He wants you. And He wants you to go out there and relate to other people that were in the same situation as you, and help bring them to Jesus Christ. That's what our mission in life is. That's what Jesus Christ demanded of us. That's what we are supposed to be out there doing. So don't worry about what your family might think of you. Don't worry about what your friends might think of you. Don't worry about what society might think of you. And don't worry about what the government might think of you. Start worrying about what Jesus Christ might think of you. Worry about what Jesus Christ is going to tell you come Judgment Day. And also keep in mind, like I said earlier on in this video, every minister, as teachers, all have different ways of teaching and different methods. The majority of my congregants with Spiritual Messiah Ministries came to Spiritual Messiah Ministries and decided to make Spiritual Messiah Ministries their home, and decided to make me their spiritual leader, or should I say, decided to allow me to be their spiritual leader, because I fit in with them. I'm one of them, and I'm not afraid to show it. I'm not going to put on an act and pretend to be somebody I'm not, and they respect that. And that's why they chose to come to Spiritual Messiah Ministries. That's why when they have problems, they come to me. That's why when they have anything going on, they come to me. And unlike a lot of ministers out there, I've had my congregants in my home all hours of the night, numerous times, because they needed somebody to talk to. I'm not here to put on an act. I'm not here for people's ridicule either. I'm here to do just what Jesus Christ asked me to do, and that is to preach the gospel and bring the lost home. So I'm not targeting just the poor. I'm not targeting just the rich. I'm not targeting just the middle class. I'm not targeting just the whites. I'm not targeting just the blacks. I'm not targeting just the Hispanics. I'm not targeting just the Asians. I'm targeting everybody. Everybody and anybody is welcome here at Spiritual Messiah Ministries. And I found that by not hiding behind a suit and tie, by not hiding behind incorporation bylaws, and not hiding behind mainstream heresy, and allowing everybody to see the true me, by allowing everybody to take a look into my personal life, my personal experiences, and to take a look into my past, and to allow everybody to get an understanding of who I am and why I have certain strong feelings on certain areas is what brought everybody to me. Now, if I allowed myself to do just the opposite of what I believe in, and either A, found Spiritual Messiah Ministries, but trying to act and look like the typical, stereotypical minister, and or get a job as a minister at an already established church or ministry, chances are a good number of congregants here at Spiritual Messiah Ministries will not have come to me. And they'd still be in the situations that they're in, if not a lot worse, because they wouldn't have anybody to turn to. They wouldn't have anybody to go to for advice, and they wouldn't have had anybody in their corner to help them get through the situations that they were in. And they wouldn't have anybody in their corner to help them through any situations they wind up in the future. But by being who I am, and not trying to hide myself behind the stereotypes of the mainstream Christian world, these people did come to Spiritual Messiah Ministries. They decided to start going to church again. They made that church Spiritual Messiah Ministries, and they decided to talk to me about their problems. And a lot of them became friends with me, where we can literally talk about anything. And they'll make it clear when they're talking to me as a friend or they're talking to me as their spiritual leader. So, you can all say what you want about my appearance. You can all say what you want about how I run Spiritual Messiah Ministries, and you all can say what you want about how I portray the message of Christ. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing a really good job. Spiritual Messiah Ministries is only turning 1 year old in 2 more days, April the 6th. We are finally turning 1 year old. In the past year, as I am, I have reached more than 200,000 people. And between my local ministry, the actual physical building of the ministry, and between the website, I have a monthly showing of 18,000 people. The reason why I'm going by monthly is it's easier to count, to include the website, just going by the monthly statistics instead of trying to break it down by week. Once upon a time I was good at math, but now not so much, and I don't feel like using a calculator. between the website and the local establishment for the ministry, I have a weekly gathering of 18,000 people a month. And I have reached over 200,000 people. Well, it was 200,000 people that I reached a couple months ago. So I got to redo the calculations, including the website statistics as well as how much we've grown locally, to come out with a more updated figure. But as a couple months ago, it was over 200,000 people. Now, in the only a year's time, to have reached well over 200,000 people, both locally as well as nationally as well as internationally, obviously I must be doing something right. Obviously, there's got to be something that I'm doing, something that I'm saying that's allowing me to connect with these people and bring them to Jesus Christ and to allow them to grow spiritually, walking the path with Jesus Christ. So before you're so quick to judge me, take a look at what I've done in only a year's time. And as I said in the beginning of this video, just a couple of years ago, I would never have thought in a million years I would have wound up becoming a minister of Christ. Anybody who knows me personally from back then, who watched me grow up and everything, would have felt the same way. And I'm sure when I told all my friends from back home in New York and my family and everything, they were so shocked. I mean, I told them over the phone because I was down in Florida already. And my brother told me, because it was over the holidays, that he was, at that point, he was with my father at, I think it was my grandparents' house. On his side of the family, my parents are divorced. And he said that my dad and my grandparents literally started crying. And my dad led a prayer for me. And my mom and a few other people in my family, from my mom's side of the family, were a little shocked. My mom told me she was proud of me that I'm finally doing something good with my life. So I'm going to say that the fact that I became a minister, all this was definitely intended by Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ can lead me to where I'm at today. And I'm sure if I'm doing anything wrong, Jesus Christ will be sure to let me know. And Jesus will be sure to guide me down the path that He wants me to be on at that particular moment. So considering that I wound up becoming a minister of Christ, and considering that by being who I am, and in a year's time, I've reached more than 200,000 people, and I've led, I don't know how many people, into the walk with Jesus Christ, and out of the problems that they were in. Like I said, I was doing something right. So before you're so quick to judge me, realize that, number one, the judging isn't for you, the judging is for Jesus Christ on Judgment Day. And two, read your Bible. That's all I got to say. Jesus Himself said to come as you are, and Jesus Himself walked among these different people, and He did not dress as a Pharisee. He dressed as the rest of the people. Now granted, you won't see me with my pants below my butt. You won't see me with shirts with logos all over them, or with baseball caps turned sideways or backwards. That's not me. But you can more or less get the point I'm trying to make. Now this video kind of went a lot longer than I wanted it to. I'm going to cut the video here. Hopefully you all can understand what I mean by the fact that I'm a new minister for a new world. And either can you agree with how I'm doing things or you don't. If you don't, then fine. That's your thing. Obviously, who I am and the way I preach isn't your thing. It's not what grabs you. Whatever church you're a part of, obviously grabs you, and they're able to feed your spiritual needs a lot better than I can, and that's fine. Not every minister out there is going to be able to feed the people spiritually to the same degree, or even at all, as the next minister can. And as I've been meeting other ministers, I've been paying attention to how they do things. And if I find somebody that, just doesn't look like they're feeling it here at Christian Sign Ministries, I'll direct them to one of the other ministers that I feel might be able to help lead them to Jesus Christ a little bit better than I can. And everybody has their own methods, and everybody has different appetite. So that being said, I hope you have a better understanding of where I'm coming from, and I hope you will continue to watch my videos if you're watching my videos. If you're not, I hope you'll start watching my videos just to kill your curiosity of how I preach the message of Christ. And I will see you all in the next video. God bless.